arrive and then get started.
Excellent. Well, we're going to wait just a few short minutes.
Looks like everybody's in.
Excellent. And I wanted to share with the group not only the appreciation of all our techie geniuses, but Rose contributed to the animation that you're now watching. She took one of my opening scenes, which you're all familiar with, and she animated it. And I thought it came out exceptionally well. And it shows you how some of these new AI tools can take a still life and really make it very vibrant, very, very much alive. Excellent. Well, I appreciate everyone taking time from their busy schedules to join us today. We have some really interesting things we're going to delve into, and it's sort of going to be a continuation from where we left off in our last presentation. I'm trying to coordinate my slides here. And just for a quick review to get us started, the last couple of presentations have been on contemporary science and how it's continuously discovering all these ageless wisdom teachings. And we went into the idea of how the microcosm where we live is connected to the macrocosm, like the planetary lives, the suns, and other constellations. And we demonstrated how science is affirming that all these starry nebulae and suns and star systems are all connected by these hidden networks. And we're going to continue with that. Also, we outlined in our last meeting how the asteroid Atlas was now moving through our solar system in the October-December area. And it may have deep spiritual implications according to the Ageless Wisdom teachings. And we touched on it lightly in our last session, but we really want to bore down on that a little more thoroughly. And it's not going to be easy because one or two of the videos that I'm going to be sharing with you are full of scientific observation and data, but they do throw in these very glamorous pictures of ETs and potential aliens that don't really support sort of the level that we're sharing on here, which is primarily subjective. But keeping in mind that the subjective, even when it comes to extraterrestrials, they'd have to work with some type of form nature to explore on these lower levels, particularly where we reside. One of the greatest events in the history of science and humanity is now taking place, and we on a deep subjective level may be an intimate part of this awesome event. It has been prophesied that the shambolic impact of 2025 will bring revolutionary changes to our personal perceptions of reality, our group work, and the entire planet. We all know that humanity is in a place of great historical crisis. And the question I ask is it possible that the only way man can reverse his downward spin into another world war or international crisis is by either the intervention of force from outside our planetary or solar system, or some huge environmental crisis that eclipses all local problems and for the very first time requires humanity to work together in a unified way? Now, we also understand the masters of wisdom are on our behalf trying to keep the high energy flowing down into the different groups through the new group of world servers, goodwill, triangles, and many, many other types of approach, full moon meditations and different types of ceremonies and rituals. But before we really get into this deeply, I want to share a comment that Alice Bailey made from, I think it was Glamour, a World Problem, but it could have been from one of her other books. If somebody knows the source of this, please let us know. Put it up on the chat. And it's not an easy question to answer because it was removed from the teachings. And that would be a great subject to discuss in another presentation. Why would Lucius or the Arcane School or whoever remove this, do so? And I can see, because of the power of this statement, this quote by Alice Bailey, maybe at that time people felt it would be more discreet to remove it. Now, is there anyone out there in the group that would like to read this quote by Alice Bailey?
Before
It's
you read
in,
it, I'll give you a little bit of history, Duane. There is a book called Between War and Peace that's no longer published. This is either from that book or it's a quote from Problems of Humanity, I believe. And the reason why it was edited, I believe it was in the 1950s, was because at that time it was felt that it was no longer relevant, that the hierarchy had made their decision that there would not be another war, and it was definitive that the externalization process was going to happen and that it was no longer relevant, and maybe to alleviate fear, I'm not sure, but it was removed, and maybe that was a good idea, maybe not such a good idea. So that's a little bit of the history behind it.
excellent. Thank you, Rose.
I'll go
Would
ahead and
anyone?
read it.
Okay, thank you.
And I just checked my AAB database, and it says this is an extract from Problems of Humanity, but it didn't pull up Problems of Humanity, so it's a book of that. So I agree with you. But there's all kinds of references in Michael's, his little excerpts that he had. There's multiple references on this thing here. So anyway, let me go ahead and read it. There are necessarily many lesser problems, but these cover the major ones with which humanity is at this time confronted and which must find some solution during the next 25 years. If no progress is made and these problems remain unsolved, at least in some measure, and if humanity slips back into the status existing prior to the war, then nothing can stop the next war. If it comes, it will bring the final death blow to the human race. Mankind as we know it could not survive, nor would it be right and good that it should. The death of a race might then be decreed, and the long process of nurturing a race of men who would finally express divinity would have to be started all over again. These are not idle words, but the formulation of a possibility which can be clearly visioned, but which need never materialize if humanity learns the lesson of this war, recognizes its mistakes, and sets in deliberately to take those steps which will make such a happening as the past war, 1914 to 1945, an impossibility. This will have to be done by the simple method, simple to write but difficult to implement, of establishing right human relations between men and between nations. I have pointed out 7 problems with which man must deal. They concern the material and the psychological fields of human enterprise. When I use these words, I include the educational field and the ecclesiastical. Let me point out, however, the immediate spiritual problem with which we are faced. It is the problem of gradually offsetting hate and initiating the new technique of trained, imaginative, creative, and practical goodwill.
Thank you, BL. This is a very powerful statement. And DK via AAB speaks about man's free will, humanity, and that the masters never violate the integrity of people's free will. Yet, historically, we know that during the Second World War, with the Axis nations rolling over Europe and other parts of the planet, the hierarchy could see that the allies that were forming to fight against this fascism, they needed an assist, and they did intervene. So that relates to the next slide and the next part of our discussion, and that is this idea of divine intervention. And DK lists 5 different types of divine intervention. And I want to inject here a sort of a personal note. I worked with Michael Robbins for 35 years and had the good fortune of his personal friendship. And I can say with a certain amount of authority that that man was a Ray avatar. And we don't hear a lot about what is called the lesser manifestations or avatars, but that man embodied the 7 rays through his astrology work and his psychology, and he established an esoteric, preparatory esoteric scholarly school along the lines of what the Tibetan had shared. So keep in mind, and you have racial avatars like Mahatma Gandhi or the black gentleman who was assassinated, King, Martin Luther King. These are very, very potent avatars that work perhaps on a lesser level than let's say the avatar of synthesis, which we're going to also jump into. But let's just look at these. I thought of the so divine embodiments can cover number 1 here on our list. It can cover a lot of territory. Let's look at natural cataclysms. Did you want to share something, BL? Oh, I thought I heard somebody mention something. Okay, so the second one is natural cataclysms. And I don't think anyone who's really aware of what's taking place on the planet would deny that we are in a state of cataclysms, natural cataclysms. And this is the result of our planetary logos undergoing initiation. It's the result of our solar logos and all of her embodiments through the sacred planetary logoi are also going through initiation. And if you go into nuclear astronomy or cosmology, NASA and a lot of these large scientific organizations have established that there are all kinds of changes to these different planets. And then we have the solar influences, which we've gone into in several presentations. But everything is speeding up. And yes, conventional science may not understand the inner urge or forward motion of initiation as we do. All they see is the result of it, but they're all in agreement. We are in a time of tremendous change on the planet. So then you have the evocation of slumbering entities, and we are going to deal with that a little further into the presentation. And then we have number 4, the emergence of inspired leadership. Still, and that would of course include all people of goodwill, depending on their initiatory status, would directly relate to the impact they're having on the planet. And this is where we as a group and other groups like us are so important at this time historical, and we're going to review that towards the end of the presentation. There still remains one mode of intervention which is still more mysterious, illimitably more emergent, responsive, or appearing of great sons of God who dwell in sources far removed from our planetary life altogether. This involves the appearance of lives of such stupendous and divine expression and potency that only the massed spiritual purpose of vast numbers of men can be potent enough and far-reaching enough to pierce beyond the veil which protects the earth to those far distant realms where they have their natural and everlasting abode. And we're going to come back to this statement because historically we may be moving into a period where to some degree we may be in contact with these very, very high realms of avataric expression. They cannot be reached by prayer or even by well-formulated desire. The expression of the wish life of the masses, they lie utterly beyond the realm of feeling as humanity understands it, and dwell ever in that high place which can only be reached by intentionally directed selfless thought. Are there enough people in the world today whose focus in illuminated thought can be organized and directed towards these lives in such a manner that they can be attracted and led to respond to the human need for deliverance? Such is the problem. Is it possible, but not perhaps probable? The problem of a blended demand from the spiritual hierarchy and from humanity simultaneously expressed will have to be met. And this is by no means easy of accomplishment. Unhappy, present, an event takes place which will produce stupendous changes. This sounds like that quote got cut off at the wrong spot. I apologize for that. Anyway, this is a great resource if you want to go in and read more on that commentary. Okay. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mikio Keiko. He's very popular. He's a polished and very highly esteemed and recognized scientist in the area of astronomy and cosmology with a really profound background. And we're going to watch a little video here and then we're going to discuss it. And he brings out some interesting possibilities and why that this asteroid that's steaming through our solar system has some peculiarities that are different than any other asteroids that we have experienced, either coming from outside of our solar system or within our solar system. So we will watch this.
A Manhattan-sized object moving at extraordinary speed is entering our solar system. Closest pass, December 17th. Now, at first, you might assume this is a trailer for some Hollywood blockbuster, perhaps the latest science fiction epic about cosmic doom. But this is not fiction. This is not cinema. This is reality. This is 2025. And the object in question has a name, 3-3I Atlas. The 3I designation marks it as the third interstellar object ever discovered by humanity. The first was the enigmatic Oumuamua in 2017, a cigar-shaped visitor that slipped through our solar system before we could properly study it. The second, 2L Borisov, resembled a comet, though with some unusual chemical signatures. But now, Atlas has arrived, and it is already rewriting the textbooks. The discovery of Atlas jolted the global scientific community into action. Practically overnight, telescopes on every continent abandoned their scheduled programs. The James Webb Space Telescope, our most powerful observatory in orbit, turned its gaze toward this faint traveler. Even radio telescopes, tuned to the whispers of pulsars and quasars, shifted their focus. Why such urgency? Why the coordinated scramble? Because Atlas does not behave like any object we have ever studied before. It began on July 1st, 2025 at 2:14 Universal Time. The Atlas telescope in Chile, a survey designed to detect potentially hazardous asteroids, flagged an anomaly. A dim, ghost-like point of light, no brighter than a 19th magnitude star. To put this in perspective, the magnitude scale of astronomy is counterintuitive. The lower the number, the brighter the object. The brightest stars we see at night are magnitude 1 or even negative. A 19th magnitude object is thousands of times dimmer than the faintest star the human eye can perceive. In other words, it was barely there at all. But within 24 hours, the Minor Planet Center issued a circular that stunned astronomers worldwide. The object's orbit was not elliptical, it was hyperbolic, meaning this was not a member of the Sun's family, not an asteroid, not a comet from our Oort cloud. This was an interstellar traveler, a cosmic tourist, a visitor from the dark between the stars. And unlike the first two interstellar objects, this one was enormous, tens of kilometers across, comparable in size to Manhattan Island. Then came the velocity. Atlas is moving at 58 kilometers per second, or about 137 miles per hour. To grasp this, consider Voyager 1, the fastest spacecraft humanity has ever built. After decades in space, it now cruises at a respectable 17 kilometers per second. Atlas is moving more than 3 times faster. This speed is staggering. If Atlas were on a collision course with Earth, and I must stress, it is not the impact energy would be sufficient to annihilate a continent. But the real mystery lies in how Atlas acquired this speed. In astrophysics, the usual explanation is gravitational slingshotting. A small body swings close to a massive star, siphoning orbital energy and accelerating outward. This is the same principle we use to fling our probes to the outer planets. But when astronomers traced Atlas's path backward through the galaxy, they found nothing. No massive star, no binary system, no stellar nursery capable of providing the necessary kick. It is as if Atlas were fired from a cannon we cannot see. The next revelation came from the James Webb Space Telescope. Its instruments captured the spectrum of Atlas, peeling apart the faint light into a chemical fingerprint. And what it revealed stunned us. Atlas is not composed like the comets of our solar system. Our comets are dirty snowballs, composed of roughly half water ice. But Atlas has almost no water at all, less than 5%. Instead, its coma, the glowing atmosphere that surrounds it, is dominated by carbon dioxide. This alone would make Atlas a curiosity. But then came the isotope ratios. Carbon exists in 2 stable isotopes, carbon-12 and carbon-13. In our solar system, the ratio is well established, about 1 to 89. But Atlas has nearly double the expected ratio, a deviation so extreme, so statistically improbable, that it cannot be dismissed as error. Isotopes are like cosmic birth certificates. They tell us about the environment where an object was born, the star, the disk of gas and dust, the chemistry of its nursery. And Atlas's birth certificate tells us this: I was not born anywhere you recognize. But the most puzzling anomaly was still to come. When astronomers calculated its trajectory, they discovered Atlas was not simply coasting along a predictable hyperbolic path. No, it was accelerating. Not much, just a whisper, but measurable, statistically undeniable. Now, comets can accelerate. As they approach the sun, their ices vaporize, creating jets that act like tiny rocket engines. But remember, Atlas has almost no water, and the carbon dioxide jets observed are far too weak to account for the extra push. Something else is nudging Atlas. This is where the conversation turns from the known into the speculative. Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb proposed a provocative idea. Perhaps Atlas is not entirely natural. Perhaps it is a light sail, a thin, broad structure, pushed by the pressure of sunlight itself. This is not fantasy. We have built experimental light sails here on Earth. Projects like Breakthrough Starshot envision sending tiny probes to nearby stars using this very principle. And the anomalous acceleration of Atlas matches the predictions for such a sail. Now, as a physicist, I am cautious. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. We must first exhaust every natural explanation before we leap to the artificial. But at this moment, we cannot rule it out. And that possibility, that whisper of engineering, changes everything. If Atlas is natural, then it is a messenger from an environment more exotic than anything we have imagined. It means planetary systems can form with radically different chemistries, different isotope signatures, different physical laws than the ones we take for granted. That alone would transform our understanding of the galaxy. But if Atlas is not natural, if Atlas were built, then we are confronted with the reality that we may not be alone. On the Kardashev scale, which ranks civilizations by their energy use, humanity is not even a type 1 civilization. We still burn coal and oil. A type 1 civilization controls the energy of its planet. A type 2 harnesses the power of its star. A type 3 commands the resources of its entire galaxy. And a type 4, a civilization with mastery over the energy of the universe itself, godlike by our standards. If Atlas were engineered, it could represent technology millions, perhaps billions of years ahead of us. A message or a probe launched across the interstellar dark by beings whose capabilities we cannot even begin to fathom. Now, let me emphasize, Atlas will not strike Earth. It will pass harmlessly through, skimming near Venus's orbit and vanish forever into the abyss. The danger is not physical. The danger is existential. Because if the data hold, then our most cherished assumptions about planetary formation, about chemistry, about physics itself may be incomplete. And if the artificial hypothesis proves true, then the greatest question humanity has ever asked, are we alone, will be answered, not with words, but with an object silently hurtling through our solar system. Here is the urgency. We have only days left. Atlas is already fading. The window for high-resolution spectroscopy, for detailed observation, will close in 72 hours. After that, it will grow too dim for even our largest instruments to study. This is a once-in-a-century opportunity. When Atlas departs, it will not return, and we will be left with only the data we can scramble to collect right now. It is as if the universe has handed us an exam, a final exam, one we are not prepared to take. So what is Atlas? A natural body from a star system utterly foreign to us? A relic of planetary chemistry unknown to science? A technological artifact, a probe sailing on the light of distant suns? We do not yet know. But what we do know is this: Atlas is a messenger, a reminder that the cosmos is deeper, stranger, and more mysterious than we dare to imagine. And as we strain our instruments toward this faint streak of light, we are also straining our imaginations, stretching the boundaries of human knowledge, peering into the unknown. This is what gives me hope. Because in moments like this, humanity is united not by fear, but by wonder. Across nations, across disciplines, across cultures, scientists are pooling their resources, racing against time, not to save us from destruction, but to glimpse a truth larger than ourselves. That is the essence of science. That is the essence of being human. And perhaps when our descendants look back at this moment, they will say, 2025. That was the year we first glimpsed the wider ocean. That was the year we realized we were not the only swimmers in the cosmic sea. So I leave you with this thought. Atlas is not here to destroy us. Atlas is here to humble us, to remind us that we are children in a universe filled with mysteries. It asks us a question: will we listen? Because history does not give us second drafts of moments like this. Once Atlas slips into darkness, it will be gone. But perhaps, just perhaps, it has left us with something more lasting. A whisper from the stars. A message written not in words, but in motion, in chemistry, in mystery. A reminder that the story of the universe is still being written, and we are fortunate enough to be here now to read the next chapter.
beautiful outline when you delve into how many institutions, particularly the military, are responding. And you won't see this on mainstream media or television or communication systems, but a lot of organizations are really fearful because this object atlas flying through our system is giving off levels of energy that exceed even our most advanced military. And it's intimidating to people that don't understand the potential as this gentleman just outlined. It's a moment of awe, wonder, but there's an awful lot of fear out there, and it doesn't need to be that way. It seems sort of intuitive or obvious that any civilization that was advanced enough to send some kind of a probe through the universe and to come sailing through our little system, it has to be morally developed further than where we are because of its technology. And technology often has a bad rap here on this planet because it leads to so much chaos and conflict and death and destruction. But a civilization thousands of years, thousands of centuries beyond us or ahead of us would certainly have worked out those gruesome energies that humanity seems to be plagued with at this time. Anyway, I found it interesting when we get into what the masters say about asteroids. I just wanted to point out with a little more information here that they've been able, through their different devices, to project that this comet's trajectory, Atlas, that they've been able to go back 4 million years with their instruments. Anyway, the European Space Agency, which has been retired, has traced the comet's trajectory back in time 4 million years and identified 62 nearby stars that the interstellar object likely encountered along the way. Using Gaia's high-definition data on the star's motion, velocities, and sizes, the study authors concluded that none of them have significantly altered the comet's orbit, hinting that it did not originate anywhere near us. This led the team to postulate that Atlas 31 is a very old object and that has been traveling for billions of years. I find that in itself incredible that they're able to go back and make these kind of assessments. Now, as we will demonstrate in the upcoming slides, that asteroids have a paralleling state of consciousness, that they're not just ice and snow and gases, that they actually embody different forms of subjective life. And what you're looking at here is those 14 million years that they were able, with their different devices, they were able to project its path. And as we will see, when any two objects in the universe pass by each other inwardly on the etheric level, to say nothing of the astral, the mental, or even causal levels, they exchange. So this is the path that this particular object has taken in the last 4 million years. And just imagine the consciousness, wherever it may be, it has shared with these other lives as it sailed through, but also what they imbued to it. Now, I understand this is a huge concept, and it's very hard for the lower mind to wrap around the idea that so-called inert matter or just cold chunks of ice and rock can have some type of consciousness. Anyway, we know that the asteroid Atlas has just passed by Mars, and I came across this quote by H.P. Blavatsky, and it sort of is going to kick off as we now go into the deeper aspects of this whole concept of subjective life embodying or moving through asteroids and even comets. And she said this: in the secret doctrine, it is stated that there is life on Mars, but it seems to be implied that it is currently taking place on one of the non-physical globes of the Mars chain. The physical, excuse me, the physical and psychical invisibly visible globe of that chain currently be in a state of obscuration, known in Sanskrit as pralaya. In other words, a temporary lifelessness until the evolutionary life wave of Mars passes once more onto the physical level. So here's HPB back over 100 years ago, indicating that there is life on Mars. Yeah, there's not little green men running around. They're on the etheric, they're on the astral or mental planes, and that they're waiting for their day or their cycle of opportunity to potentially re-manifest on that planet. Now, it may be millions of years as we understand time, but I thought it was interesting that this asteroid passed so close to Mars. Now, and I'm going to ask BL to jump in here in just 1 minute. We know that Mars astrologically is the planet of war. And we have to understand that Shambhala, which has been prophesized to manifest at this time and is manifesting, it often in the early stages of its impact is very disruptive. It attempts to destroy the old order and the old thought forms and the old paradigms that are holding evolution and the second ray ashrams like KH and and the Christ from coming in and reorganizing the planet with wisdom and love. And so BL, you could give us a little, if you're still with us, a little background about Mars. Okay,
Yes, I'm
maybe,
sorry. I was here. I was talking. I just and Walter can chip in too. But
yes,
okay, so yes, Mars is ray 6. It's idealism and devotion. Mostly, I think we see the idealism with Mars, and that's what gets all riled up, right? It's
yes,
desire, it's anger, and it's activity. It's motivation, and it's the spiritual warrior, okay? And it's establishing, along with Venus, the relations between the opposites. So everything has that lower side. And as any of us with a strong race 6, we can get on our little high horse and we can, uh, pound the pulpit as to this is the way it should be, and I'm not going to stand for it, and all of that with our little spiritual warrior there. But that serves a purpose, and then of course the higher spiritual um, work of Mars is to um, have the correct relationship with the planet, with the world, with other people, um, as we bring out more of that spiritualness, not necessarily as the warrior, but as the, um, I don't know, what do I want to say, the quiet um, observer who will, when needed, pick up that sword and fight the fight that's necessary. Walter, you want to add anything to that?
Oh yeah, I think you covered it very well, BL. I mean, I think we can remember that Mars is currently a non-sacred planet, and therefore it's developing. So it may express the personality aspects of Ray 6 as opposed to the soul aspects in its current state of development. Like Earth, it's evolving toward being a sacred planet. And but yeah, and then also even as in its higher form, Mars is described as a school for warriors, and that the blue books say that in Mars they work under the first logoic aspect and train those whose work is along the line of the destroyer. So Mars, even if it seems a little bit rough right now, it will have more of a kind of a Ray 1 part, being able to destroy or remove what's no longer needed, what's limiting or imprisoning consciousness, and in along sort of that destroyer aspect. So yes.
Excellent.
Uh,
Thank you so
and
much.
and I also want to add, it's definitely the School of Hard Knocks. Um, the, DK tells us that 3 planets, uh, the inhabitants of those planets, feel sorrow, and that's the Earth, and it's Mars, and it's Saturn. So that's a learning tool in the School of Hard Knocks is sorrow.
Excellent. Thank you for those comments. And if
I
we,
have I have more comments after
please
you
go
speak.
right ahead.
Okay. Early on, Michael Stacy said it's not meant as a statement to create fear, talking about that one that I read earlier on if there's going to be a war or if there's not going to be a war. Michael says, but to impress on disciples the greater need to work for goodwill, which is a precursor to attaining peace.
Yes. Just like Alice Bailey indicated, the counterweight to the potential of another world war, which could be devastating, is simply goodwill, right human relations between individual people, between groups, between nations. And hypothetically, if we were to meet some higher form of intelligence, and all these first ray types or third ray types, and it can be any ray type, that are exhibiting these sort of selfish involutionary energies, they would be forced into conformity. Because if some extraterrestrial group of people came in some form and just said, look, this isn't working, you're part of a greater system, and we're here to intervene. It sounds a little wild and obviously very speculative, but the potential is there. This idea of saving forces is vastly larger and more complex when you really get into studying it. And just to comment on, Walter, your wonderful insights in BL, I recall the Tibetan stating that like Saturn and Mars, they have very heavy connotations for obvious reasons, and we don't need to go into it. But DK says that after the third initiation, these two planets do kick in and bring in, like Walter pointed out, and BL, these destroying energies that are vastly different than just pick up the sword and slay those who don't agree with my religion, my creed, my economics. So these planets are immensely creative. And the idea of this asteroid passing by is really, really interesting. And one wonders about the stimulation. But let's go into what DK has said.
Okay, we do have a couple of more comments, and I'm going to
Okay.
skip over Heliosol for a minute. I'll get back to you, Heliosol. I want to say Walter put a comment in here that says, I made an animation of interstellar comet 3I Atlas. The following accurately shows the movement of the comet over a year, both in a standard astrology wheel chart and in the corresponding overview or orbits of the solar system. And he put the picture, the GIF, in the you should be able to look at your chat and see that and pull it up if you want to.
Excellent. And please, Walter, leave your connections so people can see the wonderful work that you're doing and be able to plug right in. Thank you.
And then Heliosol says it is another amazing synchronicity that she just watched Gaia episode that came out very recently. And yes, the person delivering the story about the comet, as it is definitely being a spaceship, the person is ESP professional. And it was also said that Atlas clearly will not hit any planet. Great timing, timely opportunity to hear from such a credible source.
Absolutely. Excellent.
Can I say something?
Please.
Duane? Rock on. So I was just going back to that. Michael Stacy actually pointed out that actual page that was removed from Problems of Humanity a while ago to me, and I find it that I probably would have been useful for it to stay in, because I think that if we study the practical world right now, the exact same world war is happening again. And if we had learned the mistakes and integrated Russia and created harmony in that region and not continued war and kind of not avoided reconciling the fact that it was Europe that created the Holocaust, not the Arabic world, we would not have the conditions we have now, which is this concept that we won't live through it. And all of us probably want to feel hopeful that we would live through it and things are going to turn around, which I'm not saying they will not. But the challenge is that free will aspect. And if we relate this to how a lot of people have engaged with all of our crises that we've been faced with, instead of looking at this broader aspect of uniting humanity, a lot of people have been drawn into maybe the grandiose aspect of something saving us, or the more darker aspect, something destroying us, instead of our responsibility in manifesting the conditions for entry of hierarchy. Because I'm not entirely sure, and maybe I'm wrong here. It feels to me that a higher being, even though they could be immune to the corruption on the planet and the contamination on the planet, may be affected in a way, um, maintaining themselves in this frequency if it was not purified beforehand, which requires us, our responsibility to purify our minds and clear out all of these narratives that have created massive divisions, you know. And then, like, it's like the idea that, oh, life on another planet, that's a conspiracy. No, it's of course it's just a fact. I mean, the idea that we have to kind of prove that there's other life and other energies, or like Michio Kaku was talking about how there's other like chemistries, like that's an amazing thing. It's just, I think if you study the teachings, right, that's more like common sense that, of course, there's other universe, parallel universes, dimensions, you know, there's so much. So,
Excellent. Thank you. Well, we're going to explore the potency of the new group of world servers exactly as you have outlined. And this earlier part of the presentation is just bringing a cautionary note to everyone's attention. And it's not doom and gloom. It's about assessing realistically the problems and how they're going to be, how restitution is going to come, transformation, transfiguration. And when we get into avatars in a few more slides, we're going to realize that these really advanced avatars will not come unless they're invoked. That it's the combined yearning of not just humanity, but all these different spiritual groups and discipleship groups that sort of, and this is a very inadequate phrase, but I don't know exactly which one to use. It through invocation, it creates these tunnels or these bridges that we've been discussing on the inner planes, and it like knocks on their door and says, okay, we are ready for your power, for your revelatory energy. Send it down. And so it's this underground bridge between us and these avatars is a two-way street. And without triangles and goodwill and right human relations, we would really be in serious trouble. So thank you for bringing that up, Michael. But I think you'll see as we move through this and we end with our meditation that all these superficial and cursory dangers will be eclipsed by our integration with love, high intelligence, and spiritual will. So is there somebody who would like to read this quotation? Because this to me is utterly profound, and it's extracted from a long dissertation by DK on meditation and its value and its potency. But I thought that, Michael, I'm going to let you share in just 10 seconds. It outlines the idea of we are not alone. But Michael Stacy, please.
Oh, I'm going to read.
Okay.
We are not alone.
Okay,
In my
excellent.
last instruction, I made the statement that meditation was the major creative agent in the universe. There are other universes that are ahead of us in development, and in them, the emphasis may not be upon creation by use of mental energies. Others may not be so advanced, and in them, mental energy may be in the process of unfolding or expressing itself in the evolutionary sense. There are also universes and solar systems where the quality and the conditions of the manifesting universe, solar system, or planet are unknown to us. It must be borne in mind that though in all manifestations the three aspects of purpose or will, attraction, magnetic love or plan, and appearance as manifestation of both of these are necessarily present. The manifesting entity responsible for these expressions of divinity may work through and occultly declare conditions and qualities of which we have no experience or knowledge. We may possess utterly no idea in the highest flights of our abstract thinking, and this includes the most advanced thinkers upon our planet, of the nature of the impulses and concepts which animate certain universal creators. Ponder on this.
Excellent. Note that he doesn't say think about this. He says ponder. And we know that pondering is intuitive and it's very abstract. And a lot of people will have difficulty wrapping their minds around what you just shared, Michael, but it's obvious to others, just like Michael said earlier, that it's a given that the universe is populated, and only vanity and egotism could think otherwise. I find this very humbling and yet also awesome, revelatory. I have this printed out and I have it over here where I can look at it. And it just is so full of hope and promise. Okay, now I'm going to skip the first part of this quote because it's an extension of something that we've already reviewed several times in other presentations. But I want to read the second paragraph where it says, esotericism teaches that asteroids and comets are the physical bodies of spiritual entities, and that these entities can bring new and dynamic influences into our solar system. When speaking of hidden etheric planets in our solar system, of which there are a number, the Master DK has this to say on the subject of asteroids. Figures also must be computed when the effect upon the planets of what are called asteroids is known. This is much greater than exoteric science has so far admitted, but the significance of this must eventually be interpreted in terms of energy and on etheric levels. Very, very powerful quote on asteroids. Rudolf Steiner, another initiate, who in my opinion may not have reached the same height as the Tibetan, who was a 5th degree master, but Rudolf Steiner had to be at least a 3rd degree initiate. Rudolf Steiner has put forward the idea that this influence of a comet or asteroid passing through our solar system is like a type of spiritual impregnation that has a specific intent and is not by mere chance or simply a random act to give birth to something new that will only later emerge in its full potency when this gestation period has matured. Okay, the Rosicrucians. How many of us have studied the Rosicrucians' teachings, not only just in this lifetime, but in previous lifetimes, because it's been around. The Rosy Cross and the teachings, white magic, alchemy have been around for a long time. Who would like to read this?
Raise your
Anyone
hand,
like?
please. Yep. Thank you,
Thank you,
Janet. Go
Janet.
ahead.
The Rosicrucians have suggested that this entry of an asteroid or comet moving through our solar system can magnetically attract negative and malefic forces in its path and remove them in its swift passage. They can also have a hidden spiritual counterpart of radiating redemptive spiritual energy. In its most simplified form, an asteroid could be seen as a saving force or a potential avataric expression. We have been taught in the Ageless Wisdom teachings that the avatar of synthesis can come no lower than the mental plane in its expression. Is it possible? Did I lose?
You're good.
Avatar of synthesis can come no lower than the mental plane in its expression. Is it possible that lesser saving forces that have been prophesied to make their appearance or impact on our solar system historically at this time may require on the lowest or densest level of material manifestations the use of these asteroids and comets to fulfill some aspect of their high mission? The passing of the large comet or asteroid into our system may be a special event that will be seen by the uninitiated person as just some mechanistic phenomenon of little importance. This is precisely why DK has indicated throughout his many works the importance of the spiritual discipline and eventually all of humanity. Developing etheric vision so that this type of phenomenon can be seen in its full implications and true inner spiritual workings.
Thank you. I appreciate anyone who's got the courage to volunteer to read, because as I look at this, I see grammatically it needs lots of commas. The sentences need to be clipped and shortened. So I apologize for that oversight. Okay, excellent. So let's talk about the avatars once again. Shambhala and the urge to synthesize. The coming avatar who is not along the line of our humanity at all. The messenger who will later come and express the Shambhala urge to synthesis, the hierarchical aspiration towards love, and the desire of humanity for intelligent activity with combined power will gather all into himself. All these qualities will focus in him, plus another quality or divine principle of which the race of men as yet knows nothing and for which there is as yet no name. He will be a great and potent avatar and is not along the line of our humanity at all. Well, that's a pretty profound statement. Is he talking about the avatar of synthesis here? Or is he talking about other types of avatars? And that's why it was important in the introduction to this whole idea of avatars and saving forces that I outlined the different forces for reconstruction that are operating and influencing us. There's a lot of them. Individual people, groups, planetary lives, our solar logos, and then energies from outside of our solar system. Keeping in mind that at the third initiation, It's not until the third initiation that you really begin to draw off those forces from outside of our solar system that are along the line of the first ray at the third initiation. That's what is called the first true initiation, solar initiation, as opposed to human initiation. Anyway, destiny of nations. Very, very interesting. Okay,
Wayne,
yes.
Greg says, if this is an extra cosmic visitor with a message, why then is the apparent communication seemingly one way? If there were such an extraterrestrial or extra cosmic visit with such advanced technological origins, then it would make common sense that we as members of humanity should be given a chance to respond in kind, hence making this a kind of two-way communication that we as humanity can truly respond.
Excellent. And I think that's a very valid question. And from what I have been exposed to and researched, that this Atlas asteroid is putting out such intense energy, it has been beaming out uh, odd, odd vibrational, I don't want to say signals because I can't say conclusively, but the question is, if this life form that inhabits this asteroid has been traveling for billions of years or even millions of years, its level of intelligence may be so far beyond ours that we're just not ready. There's just no common denominator, no place for communications to take place, because this asteroid has put out certain types of vibrational waves that some are saying are mathematical, and that's really the language of contacting higher forms of life. It's not, hey, hi, how you doing? Did you have a good day? It's 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 numbers, it's mathematical numbers that are generated and sent via electronic messaging avenues that would attract the attention. And the Atlas has gone through one side of our system and is now behind the sun, so it's very difficult to observe. But when it comes back around from the other side of the sun on its way out of our solar system entirely, we're going to get 1 second chance and we'll be better prepared to analyze all the data. You've got to remember that the government is in a state of shutdown. Now, that's not true of Europe and Asia and the Chinese and other very advanced cultures that are still up and running, but there's an awful lot of secrecy that these different governments don't want to share. There's a lot of silence, and I won't go into it, but it seems very suspicious that so little is coming out about something that just passed to some degree right in front of us. Anyway, thank you, Greg. Excellent comment. Why don't they communicate? If they're smarter than us, then the greater includes the lesser. Why don't, it's hard to know. Okay. Okay, would somebody like to read this? Energy follows thought. Because it comes back to what Michael was discussing earlier. See, when humanity becomes invocative enough, he may, under certain conditions, invoke the intervention and assistance of other life forms in the universe who are far more advanced than he is, and of which we know practically nothing. These saving forces can only find receptivity in their higher expression by disciples and initiates found in the new group of world servers and discipleship ranks, which we know is composed of advanced humanity. And this, of course, includes all these festival periods I mentioned earlier, full moon meditations, rituals, alignments, astrological alignments, whose primary purpose overall is to invoke the forces of light and be a preparation to the important reappearance of the Christ. Okay, now let's go into H.P. Blavatsky again. She claims, and this is extracted from Philip Lindsley's monthly astrological
Newsletter.
I think we lost you, Duane.
publication, which is excellent and I highly recommend. Pardon? I'm sorry, your internet connection is unstable.
Yeah, you winked out and
Okay,
then you're back now.
okay, where was I? Avatars Hitch Rides on Comets. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you were talking about this coming from Michael Lindsay's monthly publications. Yeah,
Philip Lindsay, and if you
yeah.
somebody put his link in because he does wonderful work.
Okay. Esoteric astrologer, I'll look it up.
Would somebody like to read this?
Yeah, hold on a minute. You had a hand before. Okay, there. Heliosol, were you going to read that for us, please?
Yes, thank you. Avatars hitch rides on comets. Comets make regular appearances, and it has been said that avatars hitch rides on comets, which are dynamic living beings. H.P. Blavatsky makes some observations on comets in The Secret Doctrine. The planets were all comets and suns in their origin. The sons of light clothed themselves in the fabric of darkness. They all have a common origin. Centers of forces at first, the invisible sparks of primordial atoms differentiate into molecules and become suns, S-U-N-S, passing gradually into objectivity, gaseous, radiant, cosmic, and the one whirlwind or motion, finally giving the impulse to the form, and the initial motion regulated and sustained by the never-resting breaths that Jan Johannes. The assertion that all of the worlds, stars, planets, etc., become first comets and then suns, S-U-N-S, to cool down to inhabitable worlds, is a teaching as old as the rishis. The birth of the celestial bodies in space is compared to a crowd or multitude of pilgrims at the festival of the fires. 7 ascetics appear on the threshold of the temple with 7 lighted sticks of incense. Extracted from
Excellent.
Philip's a monthly letter, which I actually receive.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wayne, we have a couple of comments.
Okay.
Heliosol said, is it possible that Walter may describe some of the meanings in his beautiful depiction of Atlas? And then Dana says, this asteroid is very definitely putting out outrageously positive communication in the inner planes. In my meditations, anyway, she says. So,
Excellent. Walter, did you want to share anything?
Oh yeah, I'm typing it, and I will reply to the comment given in just another minute.
You take your time. One
While
of
he's
the
taking,
upsides. No, go ahead, BL.
oh, I was just going to say, while he's taking his time, I just want to add that in astrology, both esoteric and mundane astrology, astrologers for a really long time have been working with asteroids. And um, so that's another nuance that's added into our our natal charts, their transits, their placement in the natal chart itself, um, the various different expressions of those asteroids that, you know, DK tells us repeatedly are very important in the energy system, which is what our astrology is our energy system. So I just wanted to add that.
Excellent. Is Chiron an asteroid? The wounded healer? What is Chiron?
Um, I'm not sure if it's an asteroid or if it's like a dwarf planet. It's got a highly elliptical orbit, but it does have an orbit there in between um, Saturn and Uranus. Um, but yeah, Chiron is extremely important in astrology and in esoteric astrology. But
You're
I
right,
think,
BL.
hmm?
Oh, yeah, I was just saying, yes, you're
Go
right,
ahead.
BL, because Chiron does orbit the sun, and so it's a one of the minor bodies. It's not in the asteroid belt, it's farther out, but it does definitely orbit it. It's not large enough to be like a dwarf planet like Ceres, so it's irregularly shaped, but as we know, it's often included astrology charts and does have a important meaning as one of the centaurs, as they're called, for the ones orbiting in that part of the solar system.
Yes, and it is considered the wounded healer. That's the mythology of him. But then he also, because he bridges that highly elliptical orbit that, you know, comes into Saturn and Uranus, because he bridges that, he's considered in his way an anticoranid. Okay. And let me see, there's just so many things about him. His orbit, he'll come around every 50 years. And at age 50 is a time when spiritually inclined people um, can reach that point of sannyasana. Okay. Not everybody does, but he's, because of his orbit in that time period, and the fact that he was a teacher. Um, he teaches us about the importance of attaining that sannyasism. Sannyasanism. Say that twice, three times,
Thank
or
you.
however. But anyway, Chiron is very important, just as Ceres is, just as you know so many asteroids out there that are Heliosol says she got awakened to self-healing at age 50. Yeah, it sounds like Chiron to me. Chiron sits on my knees, and let me tell you about my knees. Um, I have the wounded part of the wounded healing in there. So anyway, um, yeah, these are extremely important things. There's so many things that are extremely important. You can't know them all, but their energy is out there.
Excellent. Thank you, BL. And thank you, Walter. You know, the upside to the downside of all this dark lodge activity on the planet going on right now, the upside is that it's more visible. And the Dark Lodge has always been hidden and worked through its minions, and it's often difficult to really bring it up and expose it to the light of spirituality, to the light of love, and to these new Aquarian forces. And this is what I think when I look at our political system, that there, if nothing else, it shows me what I don't want. And while we're waiting for the reappearance of the Christ, what we think, what we do, we are the hands, the appendages of that great force of love and reconstruction. And as it says in the comment here, as members of the new group of world servers, we are the litmus test or the sounding board upon which this drama or expansion of spiritual energy and force will be played. It requires our participation, not our passive sitting on the sidelines, bewildered with all the peculiarities that are coming down in every direction, but to take a stand, to continue with your meditations and your group work and your service. Yes, this whole idea of reconstruction. DK has clearly stated that this is the time historically of, and I quote, the gathering in of the arhats, and that when opportunity comes over the spiritual horizon, we must seize it. We must prevent ourselves from becoming numb, overstimulated, or incapacitated by these powerful source energies and forces. And this idea of the gathering in of the our hearts, our hats, is cyclic. And it not since the time of the Buddha, to continue with what the Tibetan says, has this opportunity presented itself with Shambhala and the hierarchy and all the new group of world servers bringing these alignments in. So we can't simply play longer in the garden of the senses. We need to keep a journal. We need to collaborate and stay in touch. And that's why the most important part of these presentations is the closing meditations, which we will be moving towards. I love this statement and the quote. I can't remember where it came from. The group idea is a shining sun that dissolves the brooding clouds of melancholia that can sometimes engulf the disciple in the current world climate, where large numbers of the population are suffering from widespread depression and lowered physical vitality. These group meetings, and I understand you have many of them, and your group colleagues and co-workers, they constitute an intimate and growing part of this shining sun. And this is the time when you lean on the great law, the great law of the one, of the enlightened that have down through the centuries shared their insights and alignments. Okay, we're going to come up now shortly for our first meditation. And
Okay, before you go to that,
yes, go
all
ahead.
right, Rose has her hand up, but hold on a minute, Rose. Francis says, my impression is that the Christ mind is increasingly aligned with the energy of synthesis as it permeates the mental plane of humanity, helping to reconcile and balance the pairs of opposites, which is helping humanity to further embrace the divine plan of right human relations.
Excellent. That's profound and so all inclusive. Beautifully, beautifully shared, Francis. Thank you. Rose?
Well, a thought that came to my mind is the influence that this extra systemic visitor into our system could have upon the children being born at this time. As we know, the planets and constellations have a prominent impact, but these children being born will have a very unique and special influence that the rest of us do not have or will not have for so it's a very interesting idea to think about that these energies that it could be coming accompanying with this atlas can be affecting an entire generation of or group of souls that choose to come into incarnation right during this time. So that would be just something to think about. That's all.
Excellent. That's so true. We don't labor for ourselves. We labor for the future, as Agni Yoga Master M says. And our children are the future, and we need to protect them. And I think right now, historically, they're being slammed and assaulted from all kinds of different directions. And that in itself would be a good subject for one of our group meetings, is the protection of the youth and how they're being herded into these electronic corrals, and it's just terrible. But all of you know probably more than I do about what's taking place. Anyway, I wanted to now move into several meditations and also more opportunity for people to share. And I've chosen as sort of the theme what is called Alea, the swan out of time and space. We know that Fohat, or cosmic electricity, that comes out of the great void of pure abstraction, the Laya point, the point of infinity, as Michael Robbins would say, and it breaks down into the 7 rays. And these 7 rays in turn break down to additional hierarchies of 7 rays, and it goes on infinitely, all the way down to the material plane in which we live and move and have lots of our existence and being. But I love the concept of Elea coming, the swan coming out of time and space, because swans, amongst other important things we're going to review here shortly, they have these magnificent wings that rise and fall, and it's almost like the cosmic cycles, and they rise above the earth by the air, the pressure, the vortices under their wings, and they fly high as they migrate from one part of the country to the other. Anyway, Fohat and the 7 daughters and sons moved like a cosmic swan or wave over the face of the material world. In the beginning, when the infinitude was without form and chaos or outer space was still void, darkness, Kalahansa Parabrahm, alone was. Kalahansa, the great swan, whose arched wings hover over the illusion of manifestation, hovers and shifts and becomes the world swan, the swan maiden, the swan song of life and death. Into this world there came the swan of heaven, forefather of all swans, mother of all races, cherished emblem of many peoples. There is hardly a race on earth that does not have tales of swans beings or rituals in recognition of their sacredness. Few there are who have not heard the various told stories about the changeling powers of this great aerial creature. As a symbol, the swan transcends all levels of understanding and yet reminds the smallest child to have faith in growth and fruition. It is an extremely complex symbol of transcendence, of spirit in the world, and of cycles and creation. And if you take the 7 rays, as I mentioned earlier, through the law of correspondence, and let us just imagine that these avatars, whether they come in human form, whether they come racially, whether they come in asteroids or comets, or all the different ways we've discussed, they bring a type of uniformity, even though they may have stronger affinities towards certain rays. They all bring some aspect of the 7 rays. And that's why when you look at this, you see the macrocosm up there on the logoic plane, and it's expressed down through the upper triad, the monadic, atmic, buddhic, and then other triads, the 3 mental levels, then down to the astral. Eventually, it impacts the physical. So when you see this next video that I'm going to share shortly, imagine we are in the direct alignment with these 7 descending cosmic forces, and that the animation that you're going to see has this rhythmic flight light hovering like a swan. And just imagine it as the 7 rays, or any particular ray that you're affiliated with right now, impacting you, purifying your physical body, lifting up your emotions and driving out any unwanted pain or discomfort, bringing in high aspiration to play our part, impacting the mental plane, driving out any partially formed thought forms and any unneeded lower chitta mental substance, and being replaced by the higher mind of the soul as it descends down through this flight, keeping in mind that the flight is continuously from the upper to the lower and then back up to the ceiling, if we may use such inadequate words. So use this as a meditation. And then, of course, most importantly, opening to unconditional love expressed by the masters and these advanced avatars, and the spiritual will. The will of the Father that will clean house and destroy the old forms so that the dynamic synthesis can take place. So take a deep breath and use this as a meditation. Remember that you are not your personality, but an undulating wave of light, love, and power that is sweeping irresistibly into manifestation. Would someone like to read this mantra of fire? And we're going to have an opportunity after the next video to have lots of feedback. So thank you, Anne, Veronica.
The mantra of fire. I seek the way, I yearn to know. Visions I see in fleeting, deep impressions. Behind the portal of the other side lies that which I call home. For the circle has been well nigh trod, and the end approaches the beginning. I seek the way. All ways my feet have trod. The way of fire calls me with fierce appeal. Naught in me seeks the way of peace, naught in me yearns for earth. Let the fire rage, the flames devour, let all the dross be burned, and let me enter through that gate and tread the way of fire.
Excellent. So take a deep breath, and the next video is just an extension of the one we just viewed. And it's about drawing in, whether it's from asteroids, any part of the cosmos, those healing and redemptive fires that we need to turn the lead into gold and the centuries of tears into great joy and hope. Excellent. The floor is now open for comments, questions, or any type of share.
We have a couple of comments. Let me see. Michelle says The Voice of Silence by H.P. Blavatsky. The Kala Hamsa is the great bird, a vehicle of higher self that carries the soul beyond karma through the sacred vibration of Om. And then she sent us a really beautiful picture. And then Leslie says, our children, our future, living ethics with children. And she gives us a website for that book.
Excellent. Thank you, Leslie.
Janet says the meditation gave a sense of being the observer where past, present, and future was available.
Excellent.
Walter says, in the comment's name, Atlas stands for the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. So it's an acronym, station that discovered it. However, Atlas also aligns with Atlas from Greek mythology, that great server who held the weight of the world on his shoulders. Atlas is
Excellent.
featured in the Gemini labor of Hercules. Gemini is Ray 2, which gives an association with the Christ energy. And I just want to say, I have found that there's no, there's such a synchronicity, let me put it that way, in the names of the asteroids and the names of the planets and the mythology that goes with them. So thanks
Yes.
for bringing that up, Walter.
Excellent.
And then Helio Soul has her hand up.
Can I quickly share the impression from the meditation?
Please.
Oh, thank you. Um, the first episode of meditation, I tried to concentrate on the image of the bird and wings flowing, but that didn't really work for me. I just staring at it and go with the flow of the whatever is coming through my lenses.
Good.
And I just felt that I see the synodic wave and some electric sparkles coming, and suddenly I see that mathematical synodal wave, and it says, remember logarithmic math? I'm like, yes. And it says logarithmic was standing out in big letters, and it says, it's a rhythm of logos, logarithmic. And it was
Excellent.
very, very peculiar. And it also felt like this is the moment of creation of the first spark of anything, of everything. And
Yes.
it was stunning because it could be felt, and then the second meditation picked up that further. It was like a big fire pit where everything was swirling and changing colors and intensity, and the colors were so multitude and so many tones and colors and spectrums, can't even name them. And that also almost like a palette or for the artist to mix them up and
Yes.
just and that's what I kind of felt. Thank you.
The cosmic palette. Symbols have many levels of interpretation, and if one is open with the right interior concentration, they will get a message, insight,
Hmm.
and each person is different. And that's what makes it so rich and so beautiful. And
And
why,
felt from logarithmic because logos need to be in a rhythm, in
yes,
certain rhythm, which is stable. Um, at a certain moment of creation, at this creation, and another creation, another level of it would be another rhythm. But it's mathematically precise that was stunned me.
Yes, you're totally right. And that's excellent. Thank you so much for your share. Anyone else? Rose?
Yes, I wanted to comment likewise on the first meditation video of the electrical bird wave. The the chanting that went with that was extremely transportative, and I also think fitting for that image, but it just transported you into another state of consciousness, and it was just activating something within me that I can't articulate or explain.
Well, more than likely, it was real. Sometimes, if you can easily define something, it may be just skating around the outer periphery of something. When you're left in a state of awe, appreciation, gratitude, you know that it's going beyond the mental field and it's opening your heart. And it's unconditional love that's going to bring the predominant change in our civilization, not just a lot of advanced thinking, which is a good preparatory foundation. Thank you, Rose. Anyone else like to share something?
Walter put in there that what I just said about the asteroids and their appropriate names aligned with their meaning, that in Treatise on White Magic, page 439, that DK tells us the names of the planets are not the result of arbitrary choice, but the planets name themselves.
That's a good one.
Isn't
I
that
believe
great?
that can equally be said about children when they come into incarnation. The parents may think that they have mastery over a whole list and they choose the one they like, but often they're impressed from the inner realms what the child's name spiritually should be. Excellent.
Let me see, we got a couple of more comments here. Let me see. Heliosol says the second meditation took me into the Vedic sound mantra Gayatri. And Dana says, would love for you to use the Grigoriev chant.
That would be nice. I agree.
Is she volunteering to do the background drums?
Yeah, I hear her hand just went up.
I guess it went down again.
Any additional comments or shares?
A lot of thank yous. And Joe says, in the last analysis, it all becomes silent.
Yes, silence is the truth. Thank you, Joe, for that. That is so true.
And now I've got Simon and Garfunkel running through my mind.
Okay.
I'd
Excellent.
sing it for you, but silence is golden.
Yes. The people bow and pray to the neon gods they've made. Ooh, I love that. That is just such high poetry and esoterically true. Okay, if there isn't any additional comments. Oh, Francis, you're on.
Oh, I just wanted to add that during today's discussion was very, very penetrating, very good. made me think of the research that the Heart Mind Institute, Roland McCarthy, had done worldwide, showing that small groups such as this and many others that are evolving and have taken place in the world can literally influence the consciousness, positive consciousness and motivation of the broader humanity. And that's what's taking place. And we're that in such difficult, say, desperate times, this is an anchor of encouragement for us.
Thank you, Francis. Excellent. I guess we are the saving force we've been waiting for.
Save on,
Okay.
save on.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank everyone for taking time from their busy schedules to jump into this asteroid thing. It's complicated, and I have only touched on a few key elements, but there's a lot of information out there. Feel free to research it. But we are the sun. We are the golden specks of group life that, when brought together, create the spiritual group sun. So thank you, and I send my light and love. And Michael, we're finishing 1 minute early. Can you believe that?
Goodbye,
All
everybody.
right, if it goes
Thank you,
over,
Duane.
doesn't matter. Goes over. It's good.
Thank you.
It's always good.
Goodbye, everybody. I'll get the recordings posted as soon as I can.
Yeah, I'll send
Thank
them
you,
over soon, BL.
Thank you.